but the media is frothing for these hostages. And I don't think it's because they give a damn about the actual hostage. What
No,
the
of course
media
not.
wants is the first images, the first pictures, or, I mean, this is like the Hope Diamond. If a reporter can get an interview with a hostage, their life has changed forever. They will get a Nobel Prize, probably some handprints on the walk in Hollywood. That's what the media is after. They don't give a damn about the hostages. They just want that interview or that image. I mean, this is the Zapruder film is what they're hunting for. What's your take on this?
Well, I do agree when you can personalize something like a hostage. I saw the list that was released by Hamas. I'm pretty sure
Sure.
that's what it was. And there were some Thai nationals, some Israelis, no U.S. There was like little kids, grannies. So you can look at the 15-year-old who's talking, and it's really personal. You can relate to that person. I think that's why they want the hostage. It's very relatable. They can have a granny, they can have and they're crying. It's like Jesse Smollett, right? Just crying and sobbing. Oh my God, they got me. The Mega MAGA guy in Chicago, 2 a.m. And when it was 10 degrees, people were like, oh my God, look at this. So that does get clicks. Obviously, they wouldn't all be tapping on it. You brought this topic up, and I go, I'm not really feeling it, but I understand if it's on every station. I didn't watch it. There's something there. So they're maybe waiting for that one that comes out sobbing and relatable, likable, or even better. Hear me out. And then I want you to go. You get somebody who's an Israeli hostage released by Hamas who all of a sudden is pro Hamas. Maybe that's what we're looking for.
If a hostage comes out with a Make America Great Again hat on, the left would have a stroke. It would be they would shut down every news media outlet in the world. I don't think they're going to get what they want. What I anticipate is they're going to get a hostage to talk. They're going to have so many book deals it won't even be funny. But this is to just it is so disgusting. There was this guy I forget his name, Joe Concha, that was his name, on Fox. And they had an image of this little girl that is apparently a hostage, and I can't remember her name. We'll call her Carmela, whatever.
Right.
They had Carmela, and they were showing an image. And apparently her parents are not around anymore. And they were talking about how much trauma this little girl was going to suffer. And they were just building this up and building this up. And they're basically standing on the headstones of these hostages, these other people, with their network news site, with Fox News in lights. And it's almost like they want us to think they care, but they don't. It's all clicks, because the more clicks they get, the more deals they get from Schmeiser or whatever other these companies, these pharmaceutical companies. That's all it is. It is just pandering for advertisements. And they're
You can't
doing
talk
it.
about Bidenomics. You can't talk, like, as we discussed in another video, about Ukraine. The Ukraine's gone
Oh
off the
yeah.
table. Don't discuss it. I stand with it. However, YouTube censor bots. So that's off the table. So now we have a new thing. And the hostage thing is very relatable, though, because you look at that person, they're sobbing. I think what they really want is somebody to come out who flips, like Stockholm syndrome. Like they're
Oh
Israeli
wow.
and they
Oh wow.
flip and they go, I'm converting to Islam. I love Hamas. I would think it's almost like a movie script because, again, it's very relatable. We can see the people, we can touch them, we can see them sobbing, the interview. How did you feel about that? I think that's what they're going for, and they can get a lot of footage on that because you say you don't want like the one released hostage, another one's there. They're more intriguing, engaging because they've got the memo. It's just like when you see all the same things from all the networks, like fair and balanced news, and they all
Oh,
say the same thing, or the most 100% safe and effective, and you go, how do they all know this?
yeah.
There must be some communication, like focus on this. This is a good one. I don't see any other thing here.
These students at Harvard that are so pro ham sandwich,
Right.
and now the ham sandwiches are releasing the hostages. Is that an acknowledgement that we're bad and we took little kids? Is that an acknowledgement of that? And then if you're pro ham sandwich, if you're pro this group of people, and now they have admitted it by letting these people go, how does that change their paradigm? And then the last question I want to ask you, a ceasefire. this ceasefire. That's all we're hearing, ceasefire. Who does this benefit the most? I don't think a ceasefire benefits the Israelis. What it does is it puts a price of 4 days. 4 days no fighting is what 15 hostages is worth. And it gives, in my opinion, it gives the ham sandwiches a value for hostage. 15 hostages worth 96 hours. And it gives time for the people that are supplying them, because last time I checked, they didn't have any factories supplying the ham sandwiches. All those supplies are coming in from Syria, Iran, countries like that. Even the Taliban, I think, is supplying some of this. What, who does the ceasefire benefit, and who does it, in your opinion, who does it hurt?
Well, I think let's go to the Harvard comment. I think the people at Harvard are going to just say the same thing as they said about the flip on UBL. They go, well, UBL was justified in the attack because we're bad. I read the letter. So I think they're going to flip and say, well, it's okay that the ham Sammies took a hostage because they should have, because they were colonized. They're so far brainwashed that you can have a group as a victim group. If they commit an act that could be the most heinous act in the world, well, they're justified in the act because they're victimized. So you can't say, well, was that person victimized? But they can't see beyond that because they're so far down this cult that there's no getting out of it. And that is the bottom line. Now, the ceasefire, at this point, Israel's gone so far into this, there's no benefit for them to ceasefire except optics. There's no upside. I mean, they've gone through, and you see the carpet bombing, and there's a Hamas tunnel underneath. Whatever the fact pattern is, the bottom line is the image to Israel has been crushed, at least when you see the images on the news, because there's a hospital. They were having a party here, and they were having a bar mitzvah or whatever they have. Their thing here, it's got bombed. That was the wrong thing. It was Jewish, whatever they do in Islam. So having a thing, and it's been pushed in the media nonstop. I don't see what benefit at this point Israel gets from not continuing to the sea. And if you're going to fix this problem, no one's going to hear this. You need to fix the problem. There's no proportionality. If you're going to be a colonizer, you better control your colonies. If you're going to call them a colonizer, they better manage their colonies. And I said something on Twitter. People said, there's a genocide, right? And Twitter, genocide. I'm like, reading it, I'm like, wow, genocide. I just happened to look at the population. They say it's been going on for decades. Look at the population in Palestine. Just look at it like a crazy person. It's going up faster than any country in the world almost, or as fast. So it's a pretty bad, like if they're really committing a genocide, they're not doing it very well. So even the discussion, I said, well, here's a graph of the population of Israel, or not Israel, but Palestine, like this. And he goes, well, them having baby just to prove there's not a genocide. I go, well, then they're really bad at this genocide concept because they're not accomplishing the concept here. It was mind-numbing. This was a person who was reasonable, but they go, but they are. I'm like, but the populations are going like this. You've been saying it's going for decades. There is no logic to these people because they don't. I just don't understand. You can't see. Okay, it's not my business. Number one, these people have been fighting for decades, centuries about this land, and they're not going to get over it. And I did hear. I'll shut up after this. I did hear they found off the coast like $1 trillion worth of natural gas at one point.
Leviathan gas field.
Yeah, there's a deal here, there's a deal here, and the Palestine had it with the Israelis, and then they cut the Israelis out or the Palestinians out. That would make sense. And if there is this big asset here, and you can cut out your partner, that's business. And that is the way the world works. How they do it, sometimes you don't see. But that wouldn't surprise me. I was expecting after 20 years in the desert that we'd have cheap fuel here, like for something. Like you asked, what did we get from Ukraine? What did we give 20 years in the desert? Do you feel safer? Is fuel cheaper? No. I mean, we ultimately got zero out of it. The region is more chaotic than ever. So that's why I say don't inject the U.S. military into Israel, because what's our mission? You turn these pit bulls loose, they're going to be pit bulls, and then if something happens, now we're engaged with it. So I have not the ceasefire to me. If I'm Israel, why would I cease fire? I mean, if they think it's a threat, they've said it's a threat. They proved it by their actions. So why would they cease fire? Unless it's optics and pressure.
I agree with you. I think a ceasefire is a bad move. It lets them regroup. It lets them hide in other hospitals, wherever they're playgrounds, wherever they're at. Now, you talk about the Leviathan gas field. That is the largest gas field ever found. And before this, it was about 90% controlled by Israel. And now they're pushing for this two-state solution because somebody's about to get a part of that. Somebody's about to get
of course.
that divided up. All the mainstream news, lamestream news, whatever you want to call them, are pushing ceasefire, ceasefire. When over the last 2 years have you heard the term ceasefire with the word Ukraine or Russia? I've never heard it. I've never heard ceasefire.
Of course not. That's
There's
a great
no
point.
ceasefire.
That is a great point. I've never heard. When I heard ceasefire, I was like, "Wow, I haven't heard that term in a while."
No,
And that was an outstanding point. I heard it never, ever
never.
once. Just pump more money in. Oh my God, Ukraine's going to win the battle. I go,
Send more cash.
I am dumb as hell, but I do know what the Russians did during World War II. I do know they will stack the bodies up. Period. They're proud people that will stack the bodies up. Is that not average Joe Russian person? They're just living their life, man. Want to get some vodka, have a good time, take care of their family, put a swimming pool in the back. But the reality is they've proven their worth in battle. Are they the most effective? They don't have to be. They will stack the bodies up. So when I heard that, but it's a great point. I didn't hear about a ceasefire once. I didn't hear some compromise, some kind of, the West kept pumping money in and sending weapons, sending tanks, and no one ever goes, well, who fixes these tanks? How long does it take to train a tanker crew? Who fixes the tanks? We're not sending troops there, advisors? Come on.
The other thing I saw, you can verify this yourself if you want. The southwest border of Ukraine is Romania. The Ukrainian army has troops deployed to the southwest border with Romania to stop their own male citizens from fleeing into Romania. They're running out of they're leaving that country in the middle of the night. They actually have their own type of coyotes, like we do at our southern border, smuggling fighting-aged men out of their country into Romania. So they won't fight for their own, but they want us to. And that,
well, of course.
Yeah,
of course. I mean, I asked the question as it relates to this, kind of off topic, but it relates. I said this, and I've heard nobody tell me. I said, the IDF, how much blood do they spill in the GWAT? I've probably said this on our video. One, maybe one. 20? I asked a buddy of mine who's recently got out, who's still affiliated with the DOD, worked at the Pentagon for a period. He starts laughing. He goes, you know the answer, JT. I said, yeah, I know. Why can we not talk about this? Can we not say, if you're my friend, and I say, will you help me move? You say, sure. And you help me. And then you go, will you help me move? And I said, nah, nope. I am too busy, tied up. We're not friends, really. You thought we were friends. So when you hear people talk about Israel in general terms and you hear don't be anti-Semitic, I go, I'm just going real simple. 20 years in their backyard, in their region. And I've heard people, this was the defense when I asked this question. Well, they gave us intelligence. I don't think we need their intelligence. Thank you. It didn't work out. What would they give us? Did they give us money? And you cannot get that answer. Ask Ben Shapiro that question. I mean, that should be a valid question. If you say you're an ally of ours, you want us to send you weapons. If you want to buy them from U.S. weapons manufacturers, awesome. Buy that's a deal. There are those deals range. I don't want to give you a cent. I don't give you a penny. You've got a better economy. You got biotech. You got high tech there. The economy is far better than the United States. You've got every weapon in our arsenal. Nope. If you want to do a ceasefire, I don't get it. If it's a military operation, you deemed it that. There's no half measures in war. You've deemed it a war. Go full measure. Don't go half measures. We tried that in Vietnam. In Korea, we should have kept going. But that's a whole nother discussion.
I think if you want to get deleted, touching the third rail, ask your favorite left-leaning person why a ceasefire in Ukraine is off the table, but they're for a ceasefire in Israel. And it's kind of like asking people why they voted for Biden without using the word Trump. You can't use the word Trump, but tell me why you voted for Biden. That's the third rail. Nobody can.
I think it's a fascinating comment. And the more I think about it, I've heard from all the talking heads, well, Israel's response wasn't proportionate. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
This is like your two brothers fighting, like, oh, don't kick him in the Jimmy. It's not fair. I mean, what world are we living in here? But if you said they've got this in their head that we've got Palestine here. The poor guy can't take care of themselves, albeit they have to have an iron dome to keep from
Yep.
getting
Yep.
our incoming nonstop. I have a feeling, I'm just trying to figure this out as you mentioned it. They think this is more proportionate. Should be a ceasefire. I go, I don't know. I'm reaching here because it's a good question. Why did I call for a ceasefire? Internationally, call for a ceasefire. I never heard that once.
You're never going to hear Ukraine and ceasefire in a sentence together. And I don't know who the leading expert is on Ukraine. It's probably somebody on CNN or MSNBC. But I've yet to hear ceasefire and Ukraine in the same sentence. But over the last 96 hours, 2 weeks, Israel and ceasefire, that is synonymous. You know, Israel has to do a ceasefire. It's up to Israel to save these people. It's up to Israel. If they don't do the ceasefire, they're to blame. Israel's to blame. And it's so odd that
it is odd timing in the context when you compare it to Ukraine and Russia.
2 years.
And I think to myself, and I've said this question, the question about the IDF, no one's been to answer me. You know, I've had people, lots of reasons that don't make any sense. No one even brings it up. It's really bizarre. It's shocking no one brings it up. I love to do a whole video on James Travels. That would get me banned. But you think about that and you go, okay, just real thing. So we're friends, right? And so the countries, Egypt, Lebanon, Jordan, they're supposedly friends of these people. Take them in, right? You take them in like with people from Hurricane Katrina. When people went to Arkansas, Missouri, they're friendly. Take them in. So comparable, right? Hurricane Katrina comes, people are fleeing all over your area, all over the place. You took them in, people are nice, we'll take care of your brother.
Crime shot up like a mother around here.
Yeah, these people, Egypt's taken 80 people in last I checked. Their border is guarded, like 50 cows, on Humvees, like tanks, like you want to get it on, you better not come to this border. That's an interesting question, just like how many IDF soldiers died. Why don't their own countries take them? And the answer I got from somebody, higher up in the religion of peace goes, well, we don't want to give Israel a win. I go, so you're going to sacrifice your own people not to give, that don't make sense, right? Like, it doesn't compute. If you care, I'm not saying they won't go back, just like with the Katrina thing. Maybe they go back. But that would be a comparable example, and they won't do it. That is a real interesting dynamic. And you've talked to some Egyptians. I'd love to have one on it, but I've talked to some that won't do it online. They've got an opinion about their neighbors, that their neighbors they don't want to necessarily cohabitate with.
Yeah.
Lots of reasons. But Egypt doesn't want them. Jordan won't take them. Syria, nope. Lebanon, pick a country. Is China jumping on the bandwagon? They've already condemned Israel. They jumping on, hey, we'll take you. Hey, U.S., you're getting your borders get flooded. We'll take those people here. Screaming about Gaza. The people called the Uyghurs, I don't hear a word. Nothing. Crickets.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the only topics I had, man. That's the only topics I had. I didn't mean to throw you a curveball about the Ukraine ceasefire, but that just came to my mind.
I just didn't have anything I really think I had much to add. But then when you brought that up, I go, made me interested. I go, it's a good point. That's why I'm glad we talked about it. You said ceasefire, I'm like, hostage. I'm like, I don't know. But I should do it because I don't know. That's why we're doing this together. It's always my stupid shit.
Standard. This whole Israel-Ukraine ceasefire in Israel, man, we got to have a ceasefire. Nobody gives a shit about a ceasefire in Ukraine.
It is fascinating. They never talked about it. And I'm trying to figure out the chess moves, just like bringing in all these migrants in on scale, never done in history, and telling them not to assimilate, making their life better than it was where they came from, where it's on the dole and welfare. And then wondering why, and then not enforcing your laws. And wondering why your citizens there, your native born, are like, well, we're not tolerating this anymore. And then criminalizing them. It's like I did a video on Locals today. It was a bunch of the imams basically saying, eradicate all infidels, which everybody's not Muslim. Public, right? Out there. And then one of the police departments somewhere in the UK was like, well, they're not doing anything wrong. Yet the meme guy, on Twitter or Facebook or something, who had 3 of the pride flags connected, where they knocked on his door and said, so somebody's offended by this, sir.
Yeah. So
you won't do this to the people you've imported. You'll do it to the native born. And after time, there's going to be, if you can't police it, they're going to start policing it. It's going to happen more and more.